Evening, folks. Did you miss me? I've been gone a couple of weeks. I'm spiritual psychic and Reiki Master Gay Whisman. This is Terra Awakening. Hopefully, we're going to waken up some minds out there and give you some food of thought. Of course, we got to wake my own mind up before I can really give you something to think about. Sometimes we go to sleep. You've been watching a read one for the last almost 4 weeks. And the reason being is that I screwed up and let myself get sick. Got the flu. And I didn't look too well, so it wasn't real smart to be sitting in front of the camera. Enough of that. We're here tonight. And tonight, I don't remember if they put up the subject or not, because I don't think I gave them one, but we're going to be talking about UFOs, extraterrestrial beings, and a variation of other topics. And now we may get to phone calls later because I've got a guest here, and you know how I like to talk. You saw me for the last month sit there for an hour and talk. And I can do that just about on any subject that I bring up. I have no problem carrying on conversation. But I do have a guest tonight, so we are going to give him some space and time to intermingle with us and hopefully give you some other ideas and thoughts. You've actually seen this gentleman on another show. He's actually a co-host to, what's that show called? Oh, Reality Check.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, Mr. Walter Johnson, I consider him a UFO expert. But he says he's an investigator.
Researcher.
Okay.
I'm far from an expert at anything, trust me.
So we're going to be sitting here tonight and just kind of having a conversation about all sorts of things. I don't know if I'm supposed to mention this character's name or not, but I've been listening to Art Bell on my computer. I got into his website and been doing all sorts of things, going in and listening to, hey, you know, that gentleman has some real heavy stuff in there.
Easy to get wrapped up at Art's site.
And it's like I'm discovering people who actually think like I do.
It's astounding.
It's scary.
They're out there.
Yeah. They don't mind living around here too much, but they're out there. And some of those people that were on his show that he's had as guests and call-in people, hey, they even weirder than me. Now that's going out there some. I'm telling you,
that's
people,
out there.
That is out there. Had one guy who is, I forget what he called himself, but he is from another planet. He has.
So this wasn't the six-fingered Antichrist.
No.
That's one of his recurring callers. Art's not sure what to make of that. Yeah.
I haven't heard that one yet. No, this guy is supposedly he's involved with he don't call her the president. There's another word for her. It's not Empress either. I forget. I'm getting screwed up. But anyway, the object is that she has now sent him from the future to now to give us insight and information so that we can move forward and not make some of the mistakes, because the century he is from, which is something like 10,005, there is no more future, supposedly. And I find that strange, because now this guy is from the year 10,005. We're at 2000 now.
You know, the scary part of that whole question there is it more terrible that he might be right or that he's that crazy to believe it? I mean, I don't know which is worse.
Well, now, you know, they could say that about us.
Oh, exactly.
You know,
that's what I'm saying. That's the problem. You don't know. We might be right. That's the scary part.
Well, you know, there is a way to tell if we're right, because if we stay consistent with what we're saying and we're not changing our point of view, and I'm not, you know, I would never sit here and tell you that you guys are wrong, much. But I will tell you where I come from. And I'm getting to the point now, this is going to sound real off the wall because I'm going to go way out in left field and make a statement that I'm just coming to recognition of. And it's a simple fact that I have discovered that there's a good possibility that I'm one of those people who was a hybrid. Now, I don't know if any of y'all know what that means.
Well, that's a good era to start in with all this UFO thing, I guess.
Because in my, on your all show and
right.
this show
we've
here,
discussed it a few times on our show.
Well, I've also discussed my memory as a child going out to the garage that had a drop ceiling that nothing could be on top of, and a stairway falling down, and going up and playing with all the other children,
of course,
with toys that weren't invented then, that are just now coming out on the market now. And it's like,
in case anyone out there is not familiar with the classic abduction scenario, I guess, most times someone late in life will have some strange, I saw a light in the sky and all of a sudden I missed 2 hours kind of experience, and then go digging into their own past to find out, what happened just for those few hours. And from that, they'll start hitting on things that happened when they were 2 and 3 years old, and usually it involves other children who are among these beings, visitors, whatever you want to call them, and there's a lot of interaction, and like you say, with toys that at the time were unheard of, and now they're common use with our own children. So it kind of gives you pause to think.
And this was in the early 50s when all the UFO stuff was going on.
Right.
I mean, Roswell had just happened. And of course, I had no consciousness of this thing.
Well, at the time, it wasn't widely. I mean, you know more about it now than at the time it happened.
Yeah, but as a child, I wouldn't have known about it anyway.
Right.
Because my brain was scattered.
Most of ours were thinking that early childhood stage.
I was living a life with the people that I was born to, and then on a farm that I was sent to, and then on a family that I was adopted by. And all of this mixture, there's a whole lot of stuff I have no idea about.
Right.
So it took me quite a while to finally get an understanding of who I am and what I'm about. And a lot of, it amazes me, Walter, when people, I sit around and I hear people say, well, when I'm doing the psychic readings and when I'm doing the healing work, and they'll say, well, you have a special gift, you're blessed. And I'll say, no, I'm not. This is normal.
Right.
This is everyday life for me. I forget that other people don't think that this is not, this is something different. Everyone has this ability, and everyone has, whether you want to acknowledge or not, or where you can or not, have these experiences. See, I'm a firm believer that everyone, somewhere in their past, this life, has had an experience with the visitors. Now, you and I got in a conversation about the Greys, and how people are buying into their fear element about the Greys.
Right.
And I don't have a problem with the Greys. I know, usually I know when they're around.
Right.
Usually I know when what I call the mothership is around. There's this knowing, and I catch myself looking up in the sky, and all of a sudden I know what's there. And I know who's there, and I'm comfortable with it because it's the ship I came in on. Now that goes back to the very beginning of the creation of this planet. So now how far back are we
y'all freaking out yet?
We're going back. We're going back 3 billion years ago. Now people say, well, how do you know that? How can that be a truth?
Because it's written down in the Sumerian text. It's there. If you can read Sumerian, but if you can find an accurate source of the translations. In fact, just a review, we had a guest that talked implicitly about the fact that if you go back and read the Sumerian text, it tells that this race, the Anunnaki, came here and needed our gold on this planet to improve their atmosphere with their technology, however they do the gold trans, I have no clue. But they needed labor, so they used the indigenous life form, which was pre-man, Cro-Magnon type, upright walking apes that had evolved to a point, yes. But they took it a step further, or many steps further. Evolutionary-wise, your eyeball could not even exist as it is right now in the time frame we've supposedly evolved from. Be like a tornado going through an iron mine and leaving a room full of watches laying around. It just couldn't happen. There was help, and it's in the records that we were created genetically by people that aren't from this planet. So just to kind of catch you up on the history of it, they've been here for a long, long, long
Now, some of us came in and stayed, and some of us went into the planetary world. Okay, there is a culture within our planet that actually helps control the planet. That's what their job is.
Well, some people don't know. Admiral Byrd, on his famous mission to find the South Pole and etc., he found the doorway into this inner world. It was in his records when he came back from this mission. It was a society. He had the details.
Yeah, but see,
they're not going to teach you that when you.
But they say that he was hallucinating because he was out in
Well,
cold
of course
weather.
they have to say that. Even though he's a seasoned veteran that does this far, that is his life, is to explore and be out in these type of temperatures. They can't let that kind of truth get out into the school books, because then we'll have people thinking that we might not be alone on this planet. And, we
and
can't
other
have
people
that.
going down there to search for it. That's the other key.
And not be so focused on this worldly thing that we're all stuck in.
You know, if we could get out of, now this is going to go way out there, if we could get out of the control mechanism of fear domination from church and government and society, because we're in that. Every day of your life is either governed by your religion and your belief in it. I didn't say belief in your power greater than you. I said your belief in your religion.
The dogma.
And your government that absolutely tells you what your laws are, which aren't laws of nature nor universe, but man-made, because we have to have these laws to make sure nobody does wrong, except 90% of the wrong laws are laws that actually create wrong.
And mostly to protect our
it.
material goods. That's a big point in most of the laws we follow.
And then you have society's thought, which is controlled through the fear of the other two. This is a vicious cycle we have created here. We created this mess.
Well, to connect it, I mean, it seems to all go back to the original genetic structure that we were put as
Now,
slave, sheep mentality.
You mentioned the
Anunnaki.
Yes. Thank you. They also did one other little nasty thing.
Yes.
And not many people are aware of this, but they actually screwed with our DNA.
Majorly.
And they woke up certain aspects of the DNA to cause our culture to go forward. Now, there is a new element on the market today which actually wakes up the DNA
I think I've read
that
about
is
this.
not awake yet. And people who are using this element actually are having their body heal itself. It has to start on the emotional level before it can get to the physical and spiritual level. So it is actually making changes in their life. Now, part of the reason that I missed my last show is that I've been using this. And it put me through what I call a healing crisis.
A toxicity crisis.
The week before, about 3 days before I used it, I had been around a couple of people who, you know, we have a lot of people who go out into the public who are sick. And they're sneezing and coughing and they're spreading germs, and they're there because they think they gotta be. Most of them are there because they're afraid of their job, they can't take off, they might miss something, or they gotta go where there are people so they can pass it on. And that's the key, passing it on. So I was around a number of these people, and my body, normally I have it set so that I don't get sick. But because I had been around these people and I started using this substance, it put me through a crisis which took it up to, in 72 hours, pneumonia, but cleared it within another 24 to 48 hours. And it just so happened it was Friday night that I received the stuff, so Friday night and Saturday I used it, and Sunday I was in bad
I tried
shape.
like an herbal cleanse for your whole body system, a fiber herbal, and I definitely experienced serious flu symptoms. I was laying in the bed wishing I could die. But once it was over, I felt like a new person.
Anytime
but
you
all
do,
those toxins that are released, it'll mess you up. It really
Anytime
can.
you do any type of homeopathic remedy or healing, you're going to find yourself going through a process of getting worse before you get better. You may take the herbal remedy for one thing, and it will literally open the door to something else that you're not aware of, that needs to be taken care of. And by it doing so, you feel worse. Now, most people, the problem with most of us is the minute we feel worse, we stop doing what we're doing. Not a good thing. You have to continue to use it so the body can clear itself, heal itself. The only thing a homeopathic remedy or most of your herbal remedies are going to do is cause the body to heal itself. It's not going to do anything. It's like this crystal. This crystal can help to energize and balance my energy. It has a life force of its own. It gives its life force and its power to me to use as I need. All it does is intensify my actions, and I use it for grounding. A lot of people walk up and say, "Why you wear this?" Well, my answer to them normally is, "So you'll ask why I'm wearing it." Then I hand them a business card. You know, it's real simple for me. But I actually have a purpose for using this, as well as the other stones that I wear.
Well, then you know there's an ET connection to the quartz crystal.
Yeah, considering I helped bring it in.
Uh-oh. Well, tell us more.
Well, actually, the planetary system that I came in with, we brought most of the elements that turned into the quartz.
Right.
Also, the information that is embedded in the quartz, and there is a lot of records in quartz, okay? And when people start working with quartz crystals, one of the first things that happens to them is they start coming up with information and knowledges and experiences that are outside the norm for them. And they don't know why. They can't understand that the information has actually been passed to them and opening areas of their body and their knowledge and their life that they've forgotten. So these crystals intensify your ability to tap into your, not society, not government, not churches, truth, not the history that we've been taught, but your inner truth. What is actually your own creation. And that's hard for most people to buy.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want that responsibility, first of all. If they're responsible for it, what are we going to do?
Right.
Well,
then they can't hide from it anymore.
Yeah. You got to own it. And, you know, it's like today I find myself, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in my life that I don't want to own. I would like to give it to somebody else. But guess what? I can't. I got to sit here and own it so I can start to change it and work with it and create the proper element. One of the things that I'm finding is I'm having to remove the word try. I get tired of the universe handing me situations where I got to keep trying. So if I remove that word and use something better for it, then I won't have to try anymore, will I? See, that's just one of the things that I'm finding out for myself. So one of the things that has really been an interesting factor is I keep learning, especially about myself. I never quit learning about me. And there's a lot more about me that I'm not real ready to accept. It's like knowing that I may be one of the hybrids. I mean, does that make me special? Does that make me different? No, it really doesn't. Because
different, I would think.
Different,
yes.
maybe, but there's a lot of them out there.
Well,
there's a lot of them around here.
Exactly.
And they're just not aware of it.
The numbers are out there. I don't know if anyone out here is familiar with any of the researchers in the field, but Bud Hopkins is one of the top of the field. And he and a doctor whose name is completely gone now did a study on the people who have actually remembered consciously, not regression, not led through hypnosis, nothing like that, but just consciously remembered an abduction scenario in their lifetime, which leads them to remember all throughout their life this continual interaction with these visitors. And the numbers are staggering. I'm talking about in the tens of millions. And if that's true from their research, then the things that are being seen, which involve the hybridization of the gray race with the human race,
which is what happened
with Adam and Eve. The proof is out there. The evidence is out there.
This is the same thing that happened with Adam and Eve and their children. You know, the cultures merged. What was created there in the Garden of Eden, if you want to call it that, was a hybrid image.
Right.
That there's one culture.
Well, even in the Bible itself.
Made an agreement with.
Right. Even the Bible itself, I think it's Genesis 6:3, says that the sons of God came down and took the daughters of man. And basically, I mean, the translation has been muddled so often, but basically bred with them, and now here we have mankind. And this was, like I said, this is in the Bible that everyone says, oh, there's no ET connection to the Bible. How can there be? But there it is in the first book of the Bible. So
yeah, they just, this Sunday morning, they had on that one of the well, they call them comedy scripts, but it's a cartoon strip, which has nothing to do with comedy, but it had to do with the Greek gods, and one of them giving humanity fire to improve itself.
Right.
Well, now, I mean, if we're going to teach children about the Greek gods, how can you sit here and say that this other God is the only God?
Right.
And how can you say that we're not equal?
Well, looking just from, I went to a Christian liberal arts college and studied many, many facets of the Bible. And just looking at the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament, you've got eye for an eye, you know, vengeance is mine, wrath, fire, flood, brimstone. And then you got the New Testament, love, peace, share, do unto others as you have them do unto you. It's like two different regimes, you know, two totally different rulers of a planet's attitude. If you want to get into a space confederation type, you know, Star Trek type scenario. But it fits the scenario of, you know, here we got this warlike being trying to put forth with all their future technology and their knowledge we have no clue of as this little scuttling around race, and using it to control and treat us like sheep. But then you have this other that wants to let everybody know that even though you might not know it, you are a spiritual being and you can live forever, and you already do, but we can't let that information get out there either, because then, you know, people stop paying their bills and their taxes, and then we get a big mess going.
I really don't think that's going to happen until society crashes itself one more time, and we probably will do this.
Yeah,
I don't mean destroy. I didn't even use that word. What I'm talking about is that we're going to bring ourselves to a brink where we have to, in a sense, start over.
Well, here in this next year, something's supposed to be coming. I don't know if anyone out
well,
there's
a lot of
the
people,
Y2K
a lot of people
problem.
predicting it. But, you know, even in the 1890s, up until the 1899s, they were doing the same thing. They were predicting the end of the earth, Christ was coming, all of this stuff.
Millennial fever.
It didn't happen again. And now we're doing 2000, because the Christ energy is supposed to run every 2,000 years, and it's supposed to be changed hands, and I think it's being handled by Terra. There's a I may pronounce it wrong, but there's a name out there. He's supposed to be the high command.
The Ashtar command type
right,
thing.
at this time, in charge of the Christ energy. But then again, who knows? Supposedly I had a lifetime with this character, and he and I got in battle, and I'm here and he's there. I didn't buy that one either. That was given to me by somebody else. But the point I'm trying to make is that I didn't agree with what, let's say, Christ decided to do when he hung on the cross. But again, that was his choice, and what we've done with it since then is screwed up. What I'd like to get us back into, though, because we're getting way out into religion.
We're going off into many areas. What do you want to talk about?
Well, getting back to, like, for example, we know that the Greys are here. We know that people are having tremendous difficulty. Stryver, for one, who has done many books, and they did the TV show, the movie with his book. And believe it or not, I find that most of what he has written is true. I don't have a problem with any of his stuff. I have a problem with people buying the fear, though.
Well, I think from what I've learned, and I've studied in many different areas, not just the Stryver books.
But you've also met him, haven't you?
Well, I was going to say I've met him a few times. There's a conference, which I guess I could mention, is coming up in March, with all these people we've talked about, Bud Hopkins. They always meet to talk about the latest news, the latest what's happening in the world of paranormal, and really how it's all connected. But anyway, he's there just about every year. Even if he's not a speaker, he's there as an attendee. And I've been lucky enough to have a few personal conversations with him, and he stresses over and over again in his lectures and in person that he's taken this stressful situation, because in his first book, I mean, the descriptions of it, I was terrified, because I knew I'd lived through these things. It was touching things that were hidden from my own self. And he was going to call the book Night Terror, because as the night would fall, he just became rigid with the fear of these beings interacting with him. But he's taken it and turned it into a positive, growing type scenario with his own spirituality. And they've shown him some stuff. But at the same time, there's still this lurking control, taking away of your free will type thing that's bothering him just like it bothers me. And as soon as he figures out, or as soon as he gets any clue that this is not a good thing, that they've been deceiving him, he promises to let us all know, because he's immersed in it. I mean, he is immersed in to the point where they literally have come to his house and stayed with him and done meditation with him. I know that's kind of far-fetched, but I mean, it happened. And he's still not sure of the light-dark issue. He's just taking it and making it his own growth into the light. Now, there's been a lot of other sources that the scenarios have been quite terrifying. I met a lady who, I mean, her experiences were as close to rape as you can come. I mean, she had children taken from her, which touches back on your hybrid thing. I met this lady as well, and it was like, I just wanted to hug her the minute I saw her, because you could see that her energy was just violated. She was just, you know, completely, I can't see that being something to lead somebody into good, when you take all their freedom away and their free choice. That's the problem I have with the Greys. And
well, one of the things that happens in that area, and you and I have discussed this before,
yes.
and that is that we make a choice coming
and
into
that
this
is another
lifetime.
aspect I'm aware of.
And in making the choice, the other thing to look at is, because you have to look at where the person was raised, how they were raised, how they're reacting to their own spiritual awareness. Because the ones that I've met that have had those experiences myself, they are not on a spiritual path.
Right.
They are floundering. They're going to psychiatrists because they think they're crazy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
They have no support. They have nobody to talk with. Every time they try to talk to someone with this stuff, they lose track. They get taken out.
Yeah.
So this only feeds the fear experience. That now, to say that a lot of these people, when they're taken into these ships, and what's basically happening with a lot of the females, especially back in the 50s and the early 60s, were their eggs were taken, and with the men, the sperms were taken. And these were combined along with the mass of those beings and the different ships. That this is how they're resupplying their own livelihood, because most of these people are coming from star systems that we'll never reach, not in this lifetime. We can reach it. The knowledge for us to be able to get there is there. It's like Area 51, and the government keeps saying, well, there's no such thing, and we don't have this there. I saw a report the other day on the news where they said that someone in the government said that, or it wasn't the government, somebody made a special study, and they said that none of those things that were issued with it, like there were no more UFOs, that those were false statements. There was no Bigfoot. There was no Loch Ness Monster. How do these people know this? They don't know any more about it not being there than us knowing it being there. There are people coming out. If you get a chance to listen to Art Bell's show,
I was about to say they're out there. I mean, there's been captures of Bigfoot. It's true. You're just not going to read about it in the Sunday paper.
People are coming forward, and you know the keynote is that the more we sit in denial, the more we feed that fear.
And helping them do their job as far as covering it up.
Now, who are we helping do their job?
Now we're getting into the area.
We'll bring up the men in black. Who are the men in black? Do you have an idea?
I don't think it's Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. It was a funny movie, but I don't think that's what it's all about.
I don't think our government is out to, you know, there may be a special force, and there is a special force. In fact, we have a special military force that is connected to our space program, which now has the electric eye and the missiles to prevent an attack from outside our solar system. That's floating around up there in space, folks. And if you think it ain't, better check on it, because I'm telling you.
I thought they put those up there to protect us in case asteroids headed our way. That's what they told us.
Right. It was real interesting. All of a sudden you'll notice that when our government gets prepared for something to hand us or prepare us for it, it comes in movies first.
Interesting, isn't it?
Isn't it?
I have
all of a sudden we have
a
asteroids
side thing
attacking.
To get into about those type things too, but
well, now let's get to the asteroids. You know, all those that hit Jupiter. You know,
my goodness.
we heard all this fantastic information. So all these beautiful pictures of these things crashing.
And we're going to study it and find out the effects.
You know, the only problem is that we're just now feeling some of that energy force here on the planet.
Well, I just find it interesting that all this push when it was happening and up to a few hours after it, and then Nothing.
Everything got
in the
shut
media.
down.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, theory-wise.
Also, Jupiter is supposed to be a sun that didn't develop.
Jupiter is a failed sun. It has the right chemical makeup. It has the right mass. All it would take would be the right spark, I guess.
How do we know that?
Scientific facts. We've been there with our little probes, the Galileo missions, and et cetera, and we've studied.
So it has the same elements our sun does?
It just never caught. It never caught on fire.
See.
In fact, one of our great science writers, I know a lot of people think of him as a science fiction writer, but however, he helped design the Telstar satellite, which was one of the first orbiting satellites for communication, Mr. Arthur C. Clarke. And he always writes his science fiction books based on the latest scientific facts. And I don't know if anyone out there's seen the movie 2010 or read the book, which is a sequel to 2001. But in that, Jupiter, through the intervention of other beings, does ignite and become a sun, and all its moons, which we just had a big news story not too many months back, maybe a year ago, about Europa, which is one Clarke talked about in his book all those years ago, having algae and water and life possibilities on it, just like he had already talked about in his book. And just too many coincidences, and as we know from Mr. Redfield,
is that going to be another Terra awakening?
It could be another show. I know in every prophecy-based religion, I know as far as from anybody, Nostradamus, Edgar Cayce, they all speak about at some time towards the end times, and I hate to do the quote thing, but that's just a very broad statement for something that's hard to understand. We would have a binary system. We would have a two-sun system, consisting of a new blue sun because of the closeness and the fact that it won't be burning as brightly as ours. So
we have a new energy source.
Exactly.
Then we can go to solar instead of atomic energy.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I think it would be great.
Wait, they'll come get us if they hear us talking about that. Don't talk about that. Because they don't want us to
I
have that technology. If you can pull the energy from the air, then who's going to pay that meter laying on the side of your house for
the
the
meter will be
electric
gone.
company?
I'll just fix up my solar.
Well, that's my
and go
point.
for
That's
it.
why these things aren't getting out there, even though they're handily available, is that the people who are in power don't want us to have them.
Yeah, it's getting back to our topic.
I know we keep getting way off the source here.
See, I told you this was going to be one of those shows where when we get started, because we both have very similar thoughts,
just different flavors of it, right?
Okay, Walter's done all this studying, and I really can sit here and say that I haven't. What studying I've done has come from a whole different knowledge level. It's actually going into an area of knowledge that comes to me through, we'll call it meditation for lack of a better terminology. It's like when I do work for people, all of a sudden the information is there. And a lot of times it's not what they're expecting. Well, there's a lot of times that I get information on things that I'm not expecting and I'm not understanding clearly. Because again, I'm working with a limited set of thought and knowledge that has been taught to me by people who are built and taught fear. They're not being taught to have an open mind. We hear everybody say, well, you've got to have an open mind. Show me where in society you're taught to have an open mind. You're taught how to think, you're taught what to think, and you're taught when to think. Now,
From school to the television, to the church, to the government, it's all about keeping you slowly just going along, doing your job,
Absolutely.
being a sheep,
Absolutely.
not worrying about your spiritual growth, especially not worrying about your spiritual growth. We can't have that because then people might realize that they are free and powerful spiritual beings, and like I said, then all this little nice power structure would just not work, and we can't have that. Not if we're in power.
The interesting part about the power is we're all equal. There is no inequality here.
But we've been convinced to the contrary.
Except what we have created in our fear. And what we do is we create the inequality between races. What races? We're all humans. Yes, we all came from different species of time. I didn't say species of matter. I said species of time. It's like the friend that called on our show and he says he's from the year 10,005. There's a strong probability that he is from the year 10,005. Time travel? It is possible. We've already had several major movies. Of course, not since the early 40s or 30s have they really done a good one.
Oh, no, you need to see some. I'll recommend some for you.
Oh, okay.
Disasters in Time.
Actually, have you seen?
Excellent.
Have
Disasters
you seen the
in
show?
Time. Jeff Daniels is in it.
Have you seen the show 7 Days?
Excellent, yes.
Every time it comes on, I love that show. Now, again, it's limited to what they want you to see.
Well, right.
It's
Well, it's
limited
just like
to what
any
they
show.
want to give you.
There's tastes
But
in there.
There
There's
are
stuff
elements
in there. Right.
And now the other one where the Stargate. I love Stargate.
Excellent movie and
Last night.
excellent show.
Yeah, the show is very, very good. In fact, they had the culture that disappeared. You know, it could make things disappear last night, and that was an excellent show, because there are people on our planet who are in physical human form who can do that.
Who have done that.
Vanish. Of course, the biggest one that we have written about is Christ. He took the body into space.
Well, there's the Peruvians down in...
Actually, I have a problem with the ones from South America or Central America.
You don't think they just got to their place and ascended away?
They came north. I'm sorry.
Really?
They
so,
actually,
you see, that shows you. Even our knowledge can have
if you really check into our Native American culture, you will find that there was migration from two directions.
Right.
And at the time that the Mayans disappeared, was a time frame when the native culture started to change.
But they predicted that. The Mayans predicted that in their prophecies. So
and their prophecies, but they didn't say
you think they did it to fulfill the prophecy?
I think
just,
that they
just
moved,
an idea.
I think that now I'm not telling you that all of them came north, but I do believe that a mass of them came north. And I do believe that a mass of them went south. So I think there was a division. Now, did some of them actually leave the planet? Probability is yes, but I don't think they all left at one time. And I think the ones that came north and the ones that went south had a specific mission to give certain knowledge and abilities to certain cultures. That was their mission, and they accomplished it, because there are burial sites and things in Maryland and in even farther north than almost into Canada of same type of pottery, same type of material, same bone structure as the Mayans, whatever they had of the knowledge that were left. Okay,
there you go.
So there's, again, maybe that information has been planted.
It's possible.
But right now it's being validated. So again, and that brings us to DNA.
Yeah, we didn't get into that, did we?
Well, the DNA, when they say we can do this with DNA, we can tell you if this person did this crime with DNA.
Well, now that's more of a technical, that's just like your fingerprint is unique.
Well, I still have a problem with it.
Well, okay. Well, I mean,
if our DNA can be changed, and they say it can't, and we now have something on the market that can awaken other DNA strands.
Well, a lot of channeled information. I'm sure you're quite familiar with channeled information. Are you all out there familiar with channeled information? A lot of the material from the Pleiadians speaks about the fact that as we move into this area of the universe, which is going to be a different vibrational rate, which is a lot of the key to what's about to come down here. It's more of a, our DNA has been altered from original so that we wouldn't be easily accessible to our infinite powers that we have, the clairvoyance, the ESP, all the stuff that you supposedly can't do, you can. But genetically, we've been taught not to remember it and not to access it easily. It has to be a struggle. It has to be a meditative awareness journey. It's not easily done. That's part of them limiting us at the DNA level. Originally, we had 12-strand DNA. They altered it down to the 2-strand that are connected by the different chemicals that are connected. 4. Well, it's 2 that are helixed together, and they're connected with the T's and the A's and the G's and the C's, but look, let's not get into a biology class. As we access this vibrational rate, it will help in the assistance of everybody, not just the few people, but everybody with their genetic DNA level of awareness, which your cells do have memory, your genes
Right.
do have memory. That sounds like a real far-fetched Star Trek episode, I realize, but the scientific basis is there. All this scientifically is there because I'm very empirical in my studies. I want to see the evidence. I want the footnotes. I want to know who says that, why, and what's their background. You know, I've delved into this quite deep. Now, I'm not an expert, just a researcher. Don't forget. Don't forget.
I don't know. I'd call you pretty well known about it, you know. But then again,
this is a lifelong journey. You have to understand.
We all have to follow what feels right for us.
Well, yeah.
And if we're challenging your truth of what feels uncomfortable to you, that's what we're here for.
Believe me, 5 years ago, if someone had been on the television talking about what I'm talking about, I would have just went on by and said, okay, show me the nuts. Because I started out very nuts and bolts. I wanted to see the circle landing field. I wanted the craft piece that supposedly melts in your hand from the Roswell, which was a weather balloon. Don't forget, that was a weather balloon that melted in his hand and went back into the same shape. Never forget, weather balloon. But anyway.
Why did you say that?
Well,
it wasn't no weather balloon.
The government's official, first the Air Force released this newspaper article, I have a photocopy of it, I could have brought it, saying RAF, which is what the U.S. Air Force used to be called, has captured a flying saucer, a flying disc. We have it in our possession. The next day they come back and say, oh wait, after the generals and all the people who are like, wait, we can't tell everybody we have a UFO. After they show up, then it's like, oh wait, this Air Force man who's one of his jobs is to launch these supposed weather balloons that this was, and he dealt with them every day of his life. He's a 20-year veteran, but he went out in this field and gathered up this debris, which, like I said, the metal melted in his hand, these weird hieroglyphic-type sticks and fibers and stuff that couldn't even be a ship, let alone a weather balloon set up. He misidentified that, even though he deals with them every day of his life. That was the first cover story. But then as it started getting delved into by researchers and investigators, that wasn't holding together anymore because of the fact that Jesse, the man who found all this stuff, was too knowledgeable in his field to have misidentified it. So all these years later, like just last year, the government put out an official report. This was a balloon called Project Mogul, which was an anti-Soviet type balloon and all this stuff, even though that program wasn't actually put into effect, if you look in the government records, until 5 years later, after the Roswell incident. So they've tried every kind of cover story they can come up with to keep us from knowing that in the 47, our government had possession of a crashed UFO and occupants. Don't forget the occupants.
The problem is that we'll never know, our government will never ever tell us the truth.
Well, they've built it up too much now. The lie is too big to back away from. Although I've been hearing here and there from many different sources that the time is coming to where they're going to reveal so much that the government can't cover it up anymore.
Well,
and
I agree.
Supposedly close at hand, but you know that's all.
The information is going to come through to everyone from the visitors themselves, and whether you want to believe it, whether you don't want to believe it when you see it, everyone's going to end up having experiences. And if you've had them where you, like I say, and especially if you're living in this area, especially in this area,
concentration.
There has been a very high concentration of ships here. They just show up. What are they doing? And they show up in many different shapes. If you pay attention, you definitely will be able to see it. You'll see them.
A lot of people don't spend any time looking up. It's amazing how often people don't look up. They're focused right here, the TV's right there, the computer's right there. Who cares about what's up there? But if you just turn your eyes skyward, you'll see some amazing things going on up there.
Yeah, and you know, went to a place the other day and did a clearing of a haunting. And to be honest, the energy wasn't all that drastic of a deal, but the people who lived in it thought it was. Now, what does that have to do with UFOs? Not a lot, except that I do believe that these people have had some experiences. We didn't necessarily get into detail with it. But the point is that they did have something that was, in a sense, messing with them. So what did we do? We went and did our thing, and hopefully it got cleared up. If it didn't, then we'll go back and finish it, because there are things that we can do for those beings that are stuck.
But you apparently picked up on some other activities, some
I picked up on a whole
visitations.
lot of other stuff that was going
Right.
on, but it's not necessarily things that people are going to be open to
Ready
when you're
to
out
handle,
there.
right.
So,
Well, a lot of haunting type scenarios, now I'm not saying they don't occur because energy, all this is about energy and vibration. That's the big picture. But that's also hard to explain. We'll try that one in a few minutes. But hauntings, let's say ET visitations, and I hate using ET, but that's the easiest phrase.
I like little E.T.
Well, that's cool. But, I mean, they can fade in and out of our reality. It's just a vibrational shift. Well, okay, I'll try to put it in a easy scientific term. Think about water. Water, in its natural watery state, you can run your hands through it. The molecules are vibrating at a certain speed, but you can feel it and still move your hand through it. Freeze it. Now it's a slower vibration. They're closer together. It's ice. You can't put your hand through that. That's solid. That's a real material. Evaporate it. Well, now you got steam. You can move it, different vibrational rate. Just like this. That's energy. And this, and we're energy. Just a different vibrational rate. So if they can pop in and out of vibrations and all of a sudden there's something and all of a sudden it's not, well, first thought, it's a ghost, you know. So that's happened a lot, misrepresenting themselves as
A lot of times those
hauntings.
are, but then there are those who are actually
Oh, yeah,
stuck.
there are actually people who are stuck. Oh,
who
yes.
die and they don't know they're dead.
And they don't know
and
the
most
light.
people don't do that. Most people don't get stuck, okay? Most people, when they die, they see the light, they go to the light, they transcend, they do what they got to do. They either prepare themselves to reincarnate or they move on to the next vibration of transition. They prepare themselves for whatever is next for them. They never stop, and they never stop learning, just like we never stop learning here. Most of us stay complacent in this life. We don't choose to go in any direction. We choose to just follow what our direction is.
Well, that's
we get
so
into
easy.
a job, into a,
Right.
and we're stuck in that. We're in a relationship, a marriage, a family. That's our focus. We're not focused on what is actually happening around us. You know, I try to get people to open up to what's around you, and all of this that we're talking about tonight, whether it be visitors from outer space, if you want to use that terminology. The thing is there's not a lot to be afraid of. These entities, in my opinion, are not here to harm us.
For the majority, no, they're not.
They're here to help us develop.
I have to agree. For the majority, there's not a lot of bad.
There
But
is a lot of bad
is-
experience.
There is some bad out there.
Well, you know,
I have
we're
it on
taught-
reliable resources. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, we're taught a lot of times that it's just like here in humanity.
All right, there's good
There's
people and bad
good
people.
people and
Exactly.
bad people. The problem is there's always good in even the worst of us.
Right.
And there's
a
always
lot of
that
people
darkness even in the best of us.
Consciously choose to not.
And those are the conscious choices.
Right.
These entities have a mission.
Right.
Sometimes humanity is not choosing to pay attention to what their mission is, and there has to be a disruption to get their attention.
I agree
Now,
with that. But again,
What right do they have to do this?
in my opinion, and this is just me, an enlightened being doesn't take control from another enlightened being. That's kind of like the Star Trek Prime Directive, to use a pop culture term. You don't interfere in someone else's thing. You can show them many things and leave lots of choices up to them, but you don't choose to take ova or sperm from someone against their will. That's taking away their free will. So that's where I have a lot of the problem with. There are enlightened beings who come here and visit us, and they're there on the astral plane, and they're there in their ships, and there's all different types of beings. They've been reported in the literature. The evidence is there. The evidence is so strong, if this was a murder trial, they'd have hung him a long time ago. But
Well,
we get wrapped up in the fear.
There's another element I want to bring in
All
here.
right, go right ahead.
We're talking about beings that come in and visit us and put us in a state of mind where they can actually take us and move us and float us out or walk us out or take us through a wall.
Right.
Now,
exactly.
those that's read the Celestine Prophecy and got to the 9th insight, and you see in the story where the guy disappears, and then if you read the 10th insight, he's able to vacillate back and forth between. If you have not experienced that yet, and I have, I can honestly sit here and tell you I've done that.
Yeah.
Can I do it consciously at given will? Not yet.
Show me, show me. No.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, I honestly consider and tell you, I can't do it consciously by choice yet. The reason being is there's still stuff in those other 8 insights that I haven't accomplished yet.
Right.
So I'm still working on Gay on a daily basis, which brings me to another element, and that is called the archangels, the guardians. How do they fit into all this stuff? They're there, people.
Exactly.
They're there on a different vibrational level than even these beings that come in here to visit us. And they're here because they're part of the spiritual vibration that we created here. They're part of our original creation when we dove into these bodies and started splitting and separating and creating. They also are part of the original grouping of spiritual beings that were connected to that force that was in the Garden of Eden as Adam and Eve. That is a whole different structure of beings who are coming in here and working with us. It's like Archangel Michael. He is one of those beings. Was Archangel Michael on this planet at one time? Probability he was. And he had a mission. Now he has a job. What is his job? Protection. Protection from what? Protection of what? Everybody has an opinion as to what his job is. You know, we have all these people who were in the Bible, and now who's the guy, Gabriel, is supposed to be in charge of the gate? Mm-hmm. What gate? Everybody has a belief that there's a gate up there. The pearly gates are up there. Now, all of these beings that we talk to and about in the Bible, and we use in everyday culture to ask for protection and healing and honoring, those vibrations those entities have their own vibration and their structure. They're different than what we're talking about on this other level. These other beings are also a part of the creation in the beginning of the time this planet was aware. The beings that were created during the Adam and Eve era were at a later date. So there was a whole different setup. Now, how can I sit here and tell you that? How can I say that this is truth? Because I know it.
The soul does know truth.
I do know what I understand as my truth. And I've had conversations with ministers and people who can quote the Bible inside and out, and I used to be able to do that. But I've come to understand that there's a different truth. And it is important for us to become more aware of these other beings that are on our planet. And some of them, I have a tape with Dr. Fry, who worked with NASA, and he helped one of these beings. Right. It took him 7 years to turn his form into a physical form of body like we are, human, to be able to walk through without anyone realizing that what he was. So he's not the only one that's done this. And they do it because they have a specific mission. And you can call them an angel because they're here to protect us. They're here to stop trouble. A lot of our presidents have had visitations and conversations with these beings.
The big argument always is, well, if they're really out there, why don't they land on the White House lawn and tell everybody there? They've done that numerous times. That's the big joke. They have. They've been in contact and tried to get this point across to our government many times. But the government won't give up their power. They won't give up the controlling, make the sheep thing. I mean, as long as our global mentality is on about an 8th grade, I'm going to beat you up mentality, then they're not going to be able to help us all. They're not going to be able to.
And
that's why it's an individual thing. Right.
It's not just our government. It's every government that's on this planet.
That's the power structure.
Yeah, and nobody, because we're, again, in this sphere element, is going to give any type of structure or credence to these beings. If you travel to South America, which I haven't had an opportunity to do, but I've talked to people who have, they're daily having visual communication and sightings with these beings. In South America, there is a couple of doorways in which they enter the inner planet. There is tunnels along this, we talk about the plates shifting. There's a lot of tunnels underneath there that we don't know about. There's a lot of places that you can go into the inner earth, and there's a lot of things taking place again because that culture is being prepared.
There's
one other element
right
before we run out of time for the show, because we got about 4 minutes left. I did a little conversation on one of my shows where I talked about every 3,500 years our planet shifts direction and rotation.
Right.
And we're coming up to that space and time somewhere around, I'd say 2010, 12, 15.
12, 15, yeah, that's what
and
I've
what
heard.
that basically means is that it stops, your sun will quit rising in the east and start rising in the west, because the earth comes to a dead stop and then shifts the other direction. People say that can't happen. It can happen. It has happened. It's
Read
been validated.
Velikovsky. Soviet name. It's hard to spell. I'm not going to try, but the last name is Velikovsky. He's done many books about our history of the planet rotating in different directions.
Right.
I mean, there's all kind of Bible stories and all kind of Indian, Native American lore about, well, that day the sun stood still in the sky. That can't happen. Well, yeah, it can if the planet's not rotating. It's there. Go back and study some of that. It's amazing what this planet's been through.
And when it comes to that dead stop, don't look to go floating out into space, because you're not going to, because it doesn't stop in that length of time to where it shifts the other direction. It's just going to change everything that we do. If we think computers are going to have a problem in the year 2000, wait. There will be nothing the same when it happens again, because we're going to start over.
Well, now you realize we have to talk about global prophecy on another show.
Everything is going to change.
We have to now, because you've opened up that big kettle of worms.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is going to create such a phenomena, and our government is preparing for this.
Big time.
They know about it. They're not, we're not sitting here telling you something they don't know about, but they're not talking about it.
Well, it's just like, just to use a pop direct, the Deep Impact movie where they wouldn't tell anybody who was coming. I mean, here it is about to kill us all, and they won't tell anybody. They know.
We're about to run out
we're
of
leaving.
time. Yeah,
thank you for having me,
well,
sir.
thank you for being here,
appreciate
sir.
it. Thank you.
And people, I'll be back here next Sunday. They somehow got screwed up in the setup here. I will have a show next Sunday. I promise you, I've had people say, when are you going to do readings again? I will do them next Sunday. But I'm only going to